Potatoes are one of the most important crops to grow in the garden because of how much food that they provide for the family, and they are also, in my opinion, the easiest vegetable to grow. However, they also take up a lot of growing space, and because they take 3 to 4 months to grow, that may make you question if you really want your favorite garden beds occupied all summer long by the humble potato. So today I'm going to show you how you can maximize your potato yield without sacrificing the space. So the first time that I grew potatoes, I didn't even know I was growing them. It was a total accident. In our home in England, we lived in an old mining village where houses are typically built in rows with long, narrow backyards that were originally used as home allotments. Well, we had built a wooden box in the backyard to throw vegetable scraps and dead plants and things in. And I had a bag of store-bought potatoes that had started to go soft. I think actually one of them may have gone rotten. So I threw them into the compost bin where they could rot down without making a mess in my kitchen. Well, some weeks later, my dad had come to visit and I was showing him around the garden and all that I was planning. And I pointed out the compost bed, which I commented was now full of weeds, maybe about 2 feet tall. And my dad said, "Carrie, they're actually not weeds. You're growing a good crop of potatoes there and they look quite healthy." So that should give you an indication of just how easy potatoes are to grow. So the variety of potato that I'm going to be growing are called Fingerling potatoes, and that's because they sort of resemble the shape of a finger. They are a main crop potato, not a new potato, so they take about 100 to 120 days to reach full maturity. And I had a box of potatoes given to me sometime last fall, and maybe it was earlier than that, and they've all sort of started to go to seed. So a seed potato is just a potato that has started to try and reproduce itself. Each of these eyes is a new potato plant. I've got a box full here which are basically on their way out. As you can see, they look a bit wizened and they're no good for eating anymore. And it's the potato's last attempt to reproduce itself and survive. So this is a really good potato. It's got 4 eyes on it, versus I think that one's got 4 as well. There was one that I saw that had just 2, and I probably wouldn't plant that one. I've got so many to choose from. See, that one has only got 1. Oops. See, that one has only got 1, and it's probably not really worth the effort of planting, plus it's a tiny potato. There, that one's only got 2, and although it's a good sized potato, it's showing me that it's only going to grow 2 plants, so I'm not going to bother using that one. It may develop more eyes, but I'm going to use the ones that are showing me that they're already trying to produce plants. So when we're planting potatoes, we want to make sure that we give enough space to accommodate 5 plants per potato. I've got 10-gallon grow bags, so in that amount of soil I can grow about 4 of these potatoes. If you were growing in 5-gallon buckets, so if you were growing in like a 5-gallon bucket, you'd probably plant 2 potatoes per bucket. But I've got 10-gallon grow bags, and so I'm going to put 4 of these potatoes in each one, maybe 3 to 4 depending on the size. Some of them here that have been at the bottom of the box have grown shoots already, I'm not going to plant those ones first. I do have a lot to choose from. So I'm going to start with potatoes that look a bit more like this. And that's just because these won't be they'll be leggy plants. They've been stretching for the sunlight, so. Now, our family will happily consume a 5-pound bag of potatoes in one sitting, and we would use on average about 1 to 2 bags per week, depending on what I'm cooking. In the summer months, I tend to make things like potato salads, but in the winter months it would be more like roast potatoes and mashed potatoes and lots of that good comfort food. So I'm planning to grow a substantial crop of potatoes so that I can then harvest them and store them through the winter. So for example, if we do the math quickly, if these bags all grew between 20 and 40 potatoes, then my harvest from this selection here should grow anywhere between 200 to 400 potatoes. So that'll be a good crop to see my family through the winter. The grow bags that I bought came as 2 5-packs. So I've got 10 grow bags altogether, and they hold 10 gallons of soil each. They are a Vivo Sun pot fabric container. I just got them from Lowe's. They were not very expensive at all, and I chose them on price over anything else. And grow bags have got lots of advantages, one of which is that they allow the plants to grow healthy roots. And the reason that happens is that in a plastic container, what happens is the plant grows to the roots, to the end of the container, and then it starts to become pot bound. And the plant only allows 2 to 3 roots to grow in that space, and they start to spiral round. Whereas what happens is a process called air pruning, basically in fabric bags, because the roots are essentially exposed to the air. What happens is that when the roots reach the end of the grow bag, they feel the air and they stop growing, and they call it air pruning. And what that does is it sends a signal back to the plant to start growing new roots. And so you get a healthier plant because it's not trying to still get nutrients from those same few roots spiraling round. Instead, it's sending out new roots to gather nutrients that way. So it actually creates a very healthy plant. Inside the grow bags, I'm using store-bought potting soil. It's just Miracle-Gro potting mix. And I'm doing that for ease over anything else. Potting soil obviously contains no weed seed, so there shouldn't be any weeding to do. And it also comes with plenty of nutrition. Another reason that potatoes are going to grow well in bags is because potatoes do like loose, well-draining soil. We have got a heavy clay soil in our ground here, so growing in the ground for us really isn't an option right now. And so that's why when I grew potatoes last year, I grew them in our raised bed. And I did get a wonderful crop by growing them in our raised bed. But as I was saying earlier, that's pretty much all I was able to use the growing space for, because potatoes require a lot of space and they have a growing season of about 120 days. So I wasn't able to use that space for anything else. One of the other advantages to growing something like potatoes in grow bags is that potatoes are one of those plants that are susceptible to blight. Now, blight is a fungal disease that can really wipe out the plant, and once it gets established, it will then spread to all of the other plants. So one advantage of actually having the plants in individual bags is that should something like that happen, it's easy to control the disease because you essentially just remove the bag with the diseased plants in, and hopefully that happens before it affects the rest of the crop. So potatoes require about 8 inches depth of soil to grow in. And the reason that I haven't filled these up to the top is because what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to use the combination of 2 methods. So I'm actually going to put hay on top of the potatoes, and it's sort of the lazy gardener's approach to growing potatoes. What the hay is going to do is it's going to mulch on top of the potatoes. And the reason that I want to do that in the grow bags is that one of the disadvantages of grow bags is that they can dry out more easily. So I'm going to use hay as a mulch to sort of retain the moisture in the bags. And what will happen is that the potato shoots will grow up through the hay. So all I need to do now is to keep the soil moist in the grow bags, and in about 3 to 4 months I should have a wonderful potato crop that will see us through the winter. I have so many seed potatoes left over. I'm not quite sure what I'm going to do with them. Maybe I'll throw them in the compost pile and see if I get another accidental crop. Well, thanks for watching, guys. I hope this has inspired you to grow potatoes at home. You absolutely should. Drop me any comments or questions in the description box below, and I'll see you in the next one.